I really apologize, guys. The recording is going to start from now on. And we missed out about 10 minutes, but hopefully a lot of the points will get repeated. So you're not really going to miss out on anything big. Okay, so let me go back to sharing that other screen with the 4 points. So how do you get to be more trusting in a smart way? So the very first thing is to remember that people are more trustworthy than we give them credit. The second is to remind yourself of the benefits of proactive trust. So when you trust other people a little bit more, you're probably going to get cheated a little bit more as well. Okay, and I'll talk about some strategies for mitigating the negativity that comes out of it. But you're also going to reap a lot of benefits that we don't usually think about. Okay, so one of the big benefits is that when you proactively trust other people, you're going to find out sooner or later who is really worthy of your trust. So imagine that you trusted, a car mechanic for fixing a problem. All right. And it turns out that, he actually did fix the problem in a manner that, was very satisfactory to you. And even though you were a little bit untrusting initially, you come around to believing that he's an honest mechanic. And likewise, you identify an honest accountant and an honest dentist and so on and so forth. So over time, you can think of your you can think of your attempts at proactively trusting other people as mini experiments in life, which reveal to you who is truly deserving of that trust and who isn't. And over time, when you do that, okay, it will take a little bit of time, but let's say over 5 years, when you do that, you'll be able to identify an honest mechanic, an honest dentist, an honest accountant, an honest grocer, and so on and so forth. And so when you surround yourself with a bunch of honest people like that, it is really going to enhance your overall happiness. And of course, you're going to identify honest colleagues and honest friends and so on and so forth too. So there is a very important benefit that comes from proactively trusting other people that you would not actually reap if you did not trust people. If you never trusted people, you'll never identify the truly trustworthy ones from the untrustworthy ones. The third is to minimize the pain of being cheated. So one of the ways in which I do it, and some people don't like this strategy, but this is the way that I do it, is to actually, when I'm proactively trusting somebody, right? Let's say that I, leave my computer bag in a taxi in India, right? And I'm just running in for a meeting or a quick kind of chat with somebody, and I'm going to come back, and he might run away with my bag, right? So I'm proactively trusting him. What I'll do is I'll actually kind of, take a picture of the registration plate, so that if in the off chance that he does run away, then I at least have some way of kind of getting back. Okay, so that's one thing. And the second thing that I do is that, when I do get cheated, I try to remember that for me, maybe a computer bag is too much, to lose, but, losing, let's say, even $100 or $200 is not a huge deal for me. Okay, I mean, it still will pinch. And I think more than the monetary amount, it'll be the kind of psychological, the fact that I've been cheated will hurt a lot. But certainly the monetary amount, I can get over it. Okay. But for the person who's cheating me, I try to take this perspective. For that person, that $100 or $200 might be a huge thing, right? And it's probably going to make a significant difference to their lifestyle for maybe, a week, 2 weeks. Maybe they're going to go and throw a party, or feed their children with some fancy meal. So I just tell myself, this was my, it wasn't voluntary, but it was my act of kindness for the day or for the week. That let him go, let him have a good time. I just kind of send him good vibes. Okay, even though I feel angry perhaps and negative, I still try and kind of transcend that feeling of negativity and wish them well. If you had to cheat to do this, I feel like you're coming from a huge scarcity orientation, right? We'll talk about scarcity orientation in a future class. And the last thing that I do is to try and elicit trustworthy behavior in the first place. So again, in the taxi example, strike a conversation with the guy, ask him about his family, see if he's interested in, things that you're interested in. Okay, I'm really interested in cricket, for example, right? So I'll talk about cricket with him. And what I've discovered is that when you strike that kind of a personal bond with them, and oftentimes, let's say I'm traveling from the US, I'll have some chocolates with me, and I'll actually give him, if I get to know that he has 2 kids, who are toddlers, I'll just give him a piece of chocolate, and say, go give it to your kids. And doing those kinds of things makes it more likely to elicit trustworthy behavior from them, right? Because they like you now, right? Because you're doing things that are kind and compassionate. So in a nutshell, these are the 4 big strategies. And if you use these strategies, chances are much higher that you're going to elicit trustworthy behavior from other people, and you're going to reap the benefits of trusting other people without getting cheated as much. You might still be cheated more on average than somebody who never trusts anybody, no matter what. But I think that overall your happiness levels will be higher because, of all these kind of benefits that I talked about. Okay, so I'll stop there and see if there are any questions or comments. And
I would like to point out to one thing.
uh-huh.
One thing is about forgiving.
Yeah.
And I think that is a really important thing to consider,
Right.
because sometimes, like in the last scenario, the friend who you trusted to be there for you may not have shown up the way you wanted,
Right.
or something else, some other behavior. And forgiving is a strategy I find that really hard to do sometimes, but very, very important to think about. So I want to point out to the two studies that you mentioned in your book. One is the women who are 65 and older, who have had bad experience in relationships, and they were given, half of them were given 8-week long forgiveness training, and half of them were not given any kind of training. And then at the end of the 8 weeks, then the ones who were able to forgive, they had better self-esteem and less anxiety. And
Absolutely.
even in marriages, wherever there is infidelity, they did similar study. And the ones who managed to forgive on some level, they had this experience of like a big burden lifting on their shoulder, from their shoulders. And again, forgiving doesn't mean you say that whatever they did was okay, but you let go of the anger and the distrusting traumatic trigger that could be generated in you. So it is really something you do for yourself, but it also works for others, I guess. So that's an important strategy.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. Actually, despite your, very good summary of the four things that you wanted me to talk about, I'd forgotten about forgiveness. So, yeah,
I
that is true.
forgive you for that.
If I can, we have a question here. It's just to clarify. I think it's important because Josephine is asking. So, are you talking only about money, material matters? Can you clarify what do you mean by trust? We also talk about other things, right? Not just money and.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, you
yeah.
might share a presentation with a colleague and he might go present it as if, he made it on his own and not cite you, for example. Or you tell a neighbor a secret in all honesty and reveal a skeleton in your closet. And then the next thing everybody knows about it. So you can trust or distrust on many different dimensions. And money turns out to be a pretty important one, if for no other reason than, quantifiable and, it's easy to keep track of it and so on. So, that's why we picked that as an example. But yeah, you're absolutely right, Josefina. You can have trust on many different dimensions.
Like in the relationships,
Yeah,
as
absolutely.
I was talking about forgiveness. Yeah. So what are the questions, Elena? Other questions?
Are we going to do the questions first before the exercise?
Okay, we can do the exercise first.
No, no, I mean,
Yeah,
whichever way. I just wanted
yeah.
to, because
Let's do the
normally we,
exercise. Let's do the meditation first. Yeah,
All
okay.
right.
The reason I was thinking of questions because we had the discussion on strategy. But I think it would be a good idea to do the meditation. Let's see how people react to that after the meditation. Because a lot of people are also writing about the ways in which maybe something didn't work in terms of trusting. And the smart trust is obviously to know when you have to watch out and when it's better for your mental health to take perspective and forgiveness and all that. Okay, so let's do this one meditation. It's a standard meditation in mindfulness and compassion practice. I'm going to do a slight extension of that meditation. And this meditation is about bringing out the goodness in us. And we all have that particular ability, just like the scenarios chose or showed. We all have that ability. And to bring out that goodness, in fact, is a very calming thing. So let's see if you experience that. So I'm going to invite you all to close your eyes and to set everything else aside just for next 10-15 minutes. And let's begin. Relax your shoulders. Be comfortable in your posture. This meditation is called Loving Kindness Compassion Meditation. And Raj, can I ask you to mute all? I'm sorry to interrupt, but that may be helpful. Body.
Sorry, Swati, we lost you for about 4 or 5 seconds there, I think. And so we only heard the
Okay.
last word that you said. You might
Okay.
want to, yeah.
Yeah. So taking a few deep breaths and paying attention to the nourishment that's coming to us with each slow, deep breath. And now allowing the body to go to the normal breathing, whichever way in which the body needs to breathe right now, wants to breathe right now. Just making the pace normal. And now allowing yourself to think about you yourself. If possible, maybe allowing yourself to have your image in front of your mind's eyes, or otherwise just thinking about yourself and sending loving kindness, compassion messages to yourself. So I'm going to say these messages and please repeat it in your mind right after I say one message. It's a loving kindness message, which is to wish well. And right now we are going to wish well to ourselves. So looking at our own image or thinking about ourselves, may I be happy. May I be peaceful. May I be at ease with myself. May I cultivate trust. And if there is any suffering in my life, may that suffering be reduced. So the last message is a compassion message. And compassion is a sincere wish that the pain be reduced. So sending that wish to yourself, I'm sending loving kindness, compassion messages to myself. May I be happy. May I be peaceful. May I be at ease with myself. May I cultivate trust. And if there is any suffering in my life, may that be reduced. allowing yourself to focus on sending these loving kindness, compassion messages to yourself. And now allowing yourself to think about a mentor, a benefactor, someone who has helped you in life, maybe in professional life or personal life. You may know this person personally in your life, or maybe it's a public figure, somebody's speech or book or any message that has made a difference in your life. Allowing yourself to think about that person and having that person's image in front of your mind's eyes. And sending loving kindness messages, loving kindness, compassion messages to them while you're thinking about your mentor or benefactor or helpful person, saying to them, may you be happy, may you be peaceful, may you be at ease with yourself, may you cultivate trust. If there is any suffering in your life, may that be reduced. May you be happy. May you be peaceful. May you be at ease with yourself. May you cultivate trust. If there is any suffering in your life, may that be reduced. And allowing your body to be filled with loving kindness, compassion, which is good wishes for yourself and for your benefactor, as well as a wish that if there is any pain, any suffering, any discomfort, may that be reduced. And now allowing yourself to think about someone whose well being is important to you. You care about this person, maybe a relative, a child, a parent, a really close friend. And allowing to look at their image and allow loving kindness, compassion to arise in your body and saying to them, saying to this person in front of, in your mind, it may be one person, maybe two people, saying to them, may you be happy. May you be peaceful. May you be at ease with yourself. May you cultivate trust. If there is any suffering in your life, may that be reduced. Looking at your own body and watching if there is any loving kindness, compassion that you feel in your own body. When you are experiencing the sincere best wishes and compassion for this person who you love, who you care about, is it possible to feel it in the body? Just looking at the body to see if there is any maybe warmth or tingling or comfort that you may feel in your body, paying attention to that. And now, in front of your mind's eyes, thinking about a person who you don't know that well, you have neutral feelings, maybe someone you have seen on the street or in the office working or in a restaurant somewhere, somebody who you don't know that well. Looking at the image and saying to them in your mind, may you be happy. May you be peaceful. May you be at ease with yourself. May you cultivate trust. And if there is any suffering in your life, may that be reduced. And watching if the wishes you're sending, the wishes we are sending, do you really feel those wishes? Sending wishes to yourself, to your mentor, to the person you truly care about, and someone you don't know but you have seen them somewhere. All these people, sending loving kindness, compassion messages to them, sincere wishes if possible. And now, lastly, thinking about someone who has broken your trust. It could be a relationship that you have had with a person, friendship, relationship, where you had a difficult experience or a person who cheated on you and you don't have good feelings about that, thinking about such a person, not necessarily a very traumatic experience, but somewhere you feel some sense of betrayal or some sense of being cheated, not an extremely traumatic experience. If you can think about a person of this type, allowing yourself to look at them and saying to them in your mind, may you be happy, may you be peaceful, may you be at ease with yourself, may you cultivate trustworthy behavior. If there is any suffering in your life, may that suffering be reduced. I offer you forgiveness, as in I'm letting go of the anger, frustration, and distrust that I feel in my body. I'm letting go of it. And seeing if it is difficult to do this, and then in your mind, allowing yourself to think about the fact that you're doing it for yourself. By sending these wishes to this person, you're getting in touch with the good, forgiving part of you. And also to know that if the person gets these messages and if they come out to be true, then their behavior, their attitude towards you may change. So may you be happy. May you be peaceful. May you be at ease with yourself. May you cultivate trustworthy behavior. And if there is any suffering in your life, may that be reduced. And imagining if your wishes come true, whatever your intention sending to them, then how it would be. And one more time, taking a few deep breaths, paying attention to the breaths, the nourishment that's coming through the breaths. And getting ready to leave this meditation. And opening our eyes. And if you haven't already done so, you may want to use the gallery view. And if there are any comments about your experience or any question about the material we talked about, this would be a good time to put it in the chat. Elena, you can tell me the questions, but I would like to answer this one thing. Christina is saying, I love the meditations, but I'm wondering how they tie into the happiness and the topic. Is the premise that we should be meditating daily, using different meditations, and maybe picking one and sticking to it? I would love guidance. So the meditations is a way to internalize the happiness messages that we have been talking about. So some aspect of the happiness habits, so it is one thing to intellectually understand it, another thing to let it go to your emotional level. So it reflects in behavior. So if there is any one thing that you connect to, any one meditation that you connect to, that you feel like it would be good to develop that particular habit, yes, you can choose it. And as I said, there are several ways in which you can get access to the guided meditations, and you can do them on a regular basis. I would say that if you really want to develop a mindfulness meditation practice, then it is something you may want to do on a daily level and maybe even take a mindfulness class if you wish to. But otherwise, if you like any one meditation, you could follow that on a regular basis, depending upon what happiness habit you would like to cultivate. Elena, what are the questions?
All right, we have a question from Alvaro. This question is about how do you prevent that forgiving others led them to reinforce negative behavior and continue cheating others?
Yeah. Raj, do you want to take it or do you want me to answer it first?
Yeah, I have a perspective on it that I'll share, and then
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to hear your perspective too. So first of all, forgiving another person doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to communicate to them that you've forgiven them. Okay, it's in your mind, you're forgiving them, and you can choose. If you think that it's going to be productive, then you can convey it to them, but you don't need to. So they don't really think that anything has changed. Okay. The second thing is, I've found this to be true for myself, and I don't know if you can relate to this. You actually can hold another person more responsible for their cheating behavior when you're coming from a place of emotional stability and solidity. Okay. If you've forgiven them, what you're trying to say is that, look, I mean, the chapter is closed, you did what you had to do. Perhaps, that's where you were in your evolution as a human being, and it hurt me, and I just want to move on with my life. Okay, so I forgive you for what you did. I can kind of understand. Okay, if you think that this is true, you can say this too, that I kind of understand where you were coming from. You're maybe insecure, maybe you had certain set of selfish interests or whatever, and that's why you did what you did, and I want to move on, so I forgive you. But doesn't mean that if you do this again, that I'm not going to be pissed or unhappy or upset. And when you come from the place of emotional stability and you can look them in the eye and convey that message, I think the chances that they're actually going to take advantage of you are lower than higher. Okay, it's when you're emotionally disturbed, when you're angry, when you can't hold it, when you get all kind of all over the place when you meet them because it's just so intense. That's when I think the chances are higher that they can take emotional advantage of you, and you're even more vulnerable. More generally, I've also discovered that when you're in a happy place, you can be more fair. You can call out a person who's done unfair things to you or to a colleague, etc. It's when you are emotionally disturbed and unhappy and stressed out that actually it's even more difficult to do those things. You might have discovered this in a meeting, for example. You actually even want to go against your boss on something. You're more capable of doing that when you're feeling emotionally stable. So this idea that when you forgive, other people will continue to cheat you is not necessarily true. It sounds like it could happen conceptually, but experientially, I have not discovered that. Okay, so I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you just said, Raj. Yeah.
Okay, Erika put a comment. It is interesting to see when a person cheats on you, they are at another level of scarcity. That helps not to take it personally. It's very liberating. And I totally agree with
Yeah.
Erika. I think that in this case, when we say that it's hard to forgive, we should think about ourselves first, because if we forgive, we are doing this for ourselves. We're unsticking this from our bodies, from our heads, and that doesn't belong to us anymore. It belongs to the person who did it. Here's a question about the poll that we had from Jana Kiram. So isn't there a chance that choosing the options that showcase ourselves as a good person is easier sometimes than than acting in accordance to the chosen option in a real-time situation? If so, can we trust the intentions of a person who does that?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. So today we didn't have an anonymous survey. And so the question is, could we be choosing something that looks good instead of, thinking about honestly what we could do? But the interesting thing is I have taught 2 other classes and there were anonymous surveys, and pretty much it was the same kind of results, even when it was anonymous. And I had urged people to be extremely honest and not talk about what is good, but about how they would respond. Of course, there is a possibility that they want to be good. In general, we want to be good. When it comes to actually practicing it, it may or may not be what you wrote you would do. That's a possibility. Yeah. But something to think about. That's the whole idea of this happiness habit, I think. To have this in mind about, am I distrusting or am I trusting? And what do I want to do? And what strategy I want to use? A perspective taking also helps a lot.
Yeah, I want to add that that's good that you are aware that that's possible, and in fact that's what's been shown in the research too. It's actually, it even has a name to it. It's called cold to hot empathy gap. Okay, cold to hot empathy gap, meaning that when you're not feeling that emotion, you're in a quote unquote cold state. You don't know how you would behave when you're in a hot state. um, and there's hot to cold empathy gap as well. I mean, hot to cold empathy gap happens when you're actually in an emotional state. Let's say you're hungry, and I'm sure that you've noticed this. You're really hungry and you over order food, right, in a restaurant. You can't imagine how you would be like after you've eaten the first few things that you ordered, and you'd be in a cold state by then, not hungry, and you think that you're going to continue to be in that hot state of hunger forever, so you over order. So it can very it's very prevalent, these 2 types of empathy gaps. And I'm really kind of, I should, commend you for having the self-awareness to realize that your chosen answer here may not be reflective of what you might actually do. But as Swati said, if nothing else, it sets up the intention, right? At least you're aware in a cold state what the appropriate behavior is. And next time when an opportunity presents itself and you actually discover that you did not do what it is that you said you would do, then you can reflect on the discrepancy and reaffirm the intention, right? The next time around I get another opportunity like this, I'm going to transcend those egotistical feelings and feelings of negativity and hurt, and do the quote unquote right thing.
I can see that we still have questions about people are getting worried. So how can you really achieve success? And if you're such a simple person, you're so kind to just everybody, and you're Ramakrishnan says, can a person being too trustful be seen as simpleton and generally not the kind to achieve great stuff? And and we have another question connected with what are the benefits of forgiving from Jose? Could you tell us the main benefits you receive when forgiving and being again trusty to others? So I personally think that, as I said earlier, having this, and actually Raj, in your course, there's a wonderful metaphor. I think it's a quote from Buddha that if you're if you're angry and you want to take revenge, it's like holding a piece of burning coal in your hand with intention to throw it at somebody else, and it hurts in the end only your hand. So I think that I know that people who live, and I heard that people who live with a lot of pain and who cannot forgive for many years, for a husband, for example, a husband who cheated or something like that can even develop cancer. And people sometimes connect it to that feeling that you are living with this all your life and you can't get over this, and this can really cause even serious health problems.
Yeah, and like the two examples I talked about, the two studies of the women over 65 and people who had experienced infidelity in marriages. If you are able to forgive, then your anxiety gets reduced, your self-esteem is increased. So the forgiving part is good for our mental health, and as a result, also our physical health to a certain degree. But speaking about the idea of simpleton, I think it is really important that's why I like this particular suggestion or habit. It says exercise smart trust. It doesn't just say, like be a trusting person and trust everybody and be good and that kind of advice. So I would like to, think about that, that it is not about being a simpleton that anybody can come and take advantage of, and you're not going to achieve any great stuff. In fact, if you are happier in general, if you trust your colleagues, if you trust people in general, in fact, your happiness level increases, your productivity increases, your relationships improve, and in fact, you will be able to do good things in life without having to go through this extreme anxiety of distrust. That is my experience with the people I know. I mean, there are enough people who are extremely anxious, not happy. They also achieve great stuff, yes. But the question is that necessary? Since we are thinking about happiness in this class, uh, is it necessary to be so anxious? And think about all different happiness habits we have talked about so far.
Yeah. So I think here's a thought experiment, right? Imagine that you've been cheated by your spouse. Okay. It may not have happened to you, but imagine that happened. And now you're divorced and you're constantly thinking about every single day of your life, the fact that that person cheated you. Okay. Are you going to be able to move on and have good relationships, or would you be much better off just forgetting about all of it, right? That they cheated? Because if you carry that negativity that that person cheated you and you're not able to forgive them, you're not able to move on, then any new person you meet as well is going to get a little bit of that vibe from you of, I don't trust you, or there's negativity, and you're not going to be in the moment, in the present moment with them when you're interacting with them, because you're carrying that baggage. So that, and if that thought experiment kind of you can relate to it, then you just extrapolate from it to other contexts. In any context in which you are carrying this mental baggage, negativity, um, negative emotions, etc., it is going to disturb you at the very least in terms of being present. It's also going to taint the kinds of judgments and decisions you make. You're looking at it from a preconceived kind of set of lenses, which are negative, and that's not going to be very good. Okay, and I brought up this example because actually, I just wanted to let you guys know that there is a really nice Netflix series on meditation by Andy Padicombe. He's the creator of Headspace app. You might know it. And it's called Headspace Meditation. And in session 5, I think it is, that he talks about this particular example, a lady who for 40 years after she got divorced, because her husband cheated, she was not able to, there was not a single day that she hadn't thought about it. And she wasn't able to move on. She did not have another relationship, nothing. And then, after she practiced meditation, she was able to kind of distance herself from that negativity. And then she found that, that anytime she met somebody who was a potential partner, she was kind of tainted by that negative past experience for 40 years, 40, right? That's crazy. And then, she was able to move on after it. So
Yeah, it takes a long time to forgive. Can take a long time, but in some cases, like, yeah, marriage and all that, it is really
the kind
something
of
to think
interesting
about.
sorry, the interesting thing there, Swati, is that, it almost feels more satisfying not to forgive. At some level,
Yeah,
you're kind of like plotting and scheming, and you're thinking about all these negative things about that person who cheated you, and you're in your mind's eye, maybe shooting them, or, throwing darts at them, wishing them bad vibes. And it seems at some level it is oddly satisfying. But
yes,
uh,
it is. Yes.
the negative consequences of that are far greater than the positives, immediate positive, somewhat kind of, positive thing that you derive immediately. that's no match for the huge amount of negativity, that shadow that it casts. And I know you need a little bit of self-awareness to realize that. And once you do that, then you can move on.
So Raj, that's a really important point that you just talked about. The revenge feels good to think about. And the mindfulness philosophy will say that, yeah, notice it first. That's what's coming to your mind. Don't just push it away because no, I shouldn't think about it and I need to have better mental health right away. Allow yourself to think about if there is any revenge or any negative feelings that are coming to your mind. Just let them be there, watch it, and then choose what you want to do. And really speaking, forgiveness practice is about taking care of yourself, to let go of the anger and distress and all that you feel in your body and it's affecting your body. To let go of that, that's what it's about. It's not about condoning what they did. Yeah, of course, what they did to you was wrong. So I also want to say one more thing. Whenever there is, and this is not just about forgiveness, but speaking of loving kindness meditation that we just did, anytime if you have a strong feeling of, let's say, somebody did something to you, or they are suffering, or any kind of, like a strong feeling arises in you about a person, see if in your mind you can see that person and send them loving kindness message, compassion messages. Just say it in your mind. May you be happy, may you be peaceful, may you be at ease with yourself, and if there is any suffering in your life, may that be reduced. And you can send those messages to yourself too. So try it out and see. And maybe in the beginning it may feel artificial, but eventually you really can you start feeling it and it calms you down.
The one other thing that I wanted to add here is that, this idea that, thoughts of revenge, etc., can be satisfying. um, I think that is more likely to happen if you expose yourself to stimuli that reinforce that pattern. So if you see movies of revenge where somebody is wrong, like, classic example might be First Blood, right? I mean, I don't know, it's a very old movie, dating myself, but Sylvester Stallone, society goes against him, and he, lives in a forest all by himself, and he takes revenge. And you want to support him, and you get all behind him, and you want him to win, even though he's going around killing people who are in the law enforcement and so on. And if you those are the set of kind of stimuli you constantly expose yourself to, and you watch those kinds of movies, read those kinds of books, then that is the pattern that you're setting in your own mind, right? That revenge seeking is good, and it is satisfying to get revenge, and I want to right the wrongs that were done to me. And it's very easy in a way to take that perspective. Oftentimes it's called the victim kind of mentality, right? I've been victimized, I'm a victim, and now I want to kind of right the wrong, and grab back what is my rightful position or thing in life. And that can be oddly satisfying, that's true. But it also comes with a lot more negative consequences. And if you can expose yourself to stimuli that are more abundance oriented, which is not an us and them kind of a story, I'm the hero, they are the villains, but more of a story of kindness. And again, if you wanted, just a movie, I mean, not necessarily the best movie to kind of that manifests it, but certainly a movie that does it is a movie called Gran Torino, in which what's his name, Clint Eastwood acts. Okay, Gran Torino. I think in fact he directs the movie. So that's a movie of that, opposite of revenge in some sense. So take a look at it. Okay, and more you expose yourself to those kind of stimuli, the more you change yourself from the inside out, and then it becomes a little bit easier to forgive, right? I mean, so you can do some preparatory work that gets you to a point where this kind of mindfulness and this kind of habit becomes a little bit easier. And if you do this mindfulness practice, but you go back to watching those kinds of movies that really reinforce this revenge-taking tendency, then it will be difficult. It's like you're kind of taking one step forward and two steps back.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Raj. And I think that people who cheat or who steal, I honestly feel honestly feel compassion for them, because if they happen to be in that situation, it's because they made a mistake that they will eventually, I'm sure, regret. That they just happen to, well, live that kind of life. Well, they got confused. Everybody can make mistakes. So sometimes I live in Latin America, and I know we have people who, when they find a wallet, they think it's God sent them the wallet and they have the right to use the money from the wallet and they don't even think to return it. But it's because they unfortunately are in an unprivileged situation, and feel compassion for those people, the people who cheat again. Well, I'm sure they will regret they made a mistake. We have a question from Ted, and it was from the very beginning. He, when you Raj were giving examples about a taxi driver and how to encourage people to how to show them that you trust them, so that they would also be trustworthy. He says that a couple of your examples, I find them to be a form of paranoia or manipulation to your advantage, so that you can trust, and is that real trust? If we are kind of checking them.
Yeah, it's a good question. And that's why I said that even before I kind of, elaborated on that strategy, that some people don't like it. I guess it speaks to where I am in the evolution of my own, advancement. And at this stage, I feel like that's an important thing for me to do, because I have to kind of look at the pros and cons of two kinds of outcomes, right? One is that I don't do those kinds of things, which seem a little bit manipulative. You're right, right? And then I get cheated. How would I feel? And versus doing this kind of somewhat manipulative thing. And I don't know if I would totally agree that it's manipulative. I mean, that seems like a very strong word. I think that what I'm trying to do is to, and it turns out that it's actually quite authentic in the sense that I am an extrovert. I like to know about other people. And anyway, I think that, I would have done those kinds of things. It's just that I've also discovered that it makes the other person more trustworthy. And so I think of it as a bit of a win-win. And I think that if you go in with the intention of only doing it because, you're going to elicit trustworthy behavior from the other people, and otherwise it's completely unnatural to you, then I think it can, seem a little more manipulative. I hope that makes sense. But your point is well taken. Okay, guilty as charged.
I don't know if you have time for one more question. So Hari asks, does trust work different? Does trust work differently in the personal and professional circles? Is there any difference?
I think that wouldn't that depend? That is about what smart trust is about, right? That in the personal life, the way you exercise trust, or the reason and the way you trust people and the way it reflects would may be different than the way you do it in the professional life. So I think it is really important to be aware of this point.
Okay, so this is going to be coming at it from a different angle, but there is a concept called Losada line. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but this idea that you need 3 times as many positive experiences in your life as negative for you to judge your life as overall being a good life, right? Just a 1-to-1 ratio of positive and negative is not good enough. You need 3 times as many. That's because we tend to be by default more negatively oriented. And I talked a little bit about it earlier. That's because of our evolution as a species. For a huge swathe of our existence as a human species, we were fighting for survival. And so if you did not notice negative things, you might get killed. And so we paid more attention to negative. It's just that we don't live in those circumstances anymore. We are not fighting for survival on a daily basis anymore. And in the context of relationships, that ratio of 3-to-1 is even more extreme. And it turns out that in the context of personal relationships with your friends, a spouse, children, etc., the ratio is 5-to-1. That is that for every time that they do something negative, they need to do 5 times as many positive things in order for you to start feeling good about them again. Let's imagine that your wife came late to a meeting, right? Or to an appointment, then she needs to, or he needs to come 5 times on time in order for you to now erase that negative feeling. Okay, that's what the research says. And in business contexts, that ratio is even more extreme. It's 6-to-1. Yeah, so Manish Singhal, the Losada line is, there is an argument around whether it's true or not. It's not been debunked. I think that so the way that the math worked out, the Marcel Losada, it turns out that, he wasn't really, he wasn't really honest about knowing the math behind, the calculation. But whether the ratio is actually 3-to-1 or whether it's 4-to-1 or 2-to-1, that's the argument. It's not that it's not accurate. So just the data is okay. I think the data is okay. I mean, that's what Barbara Fredrickson says, at least. She's the co-author on that paper. So my reading is that, it's very consistent with the negativity bias, which has been established for a long time. And, we can argue about the exact number, but the idea is that you do need more positive than negative. And in the case of relationships, particularly business relationships, the ratio is even more extreme. And so what that means is that in a business context, if you get cheated, it's going to take a lot more for you to overcome that negativity. Okay. And knowing this, I think that you need to be even more careful about implementing the strategies of smart trust. Okay. That's what I would say in a business context than perhaps in a personal context.
Is there any difference in trusting parents or forgiving parents or forgiving a partner? There's a question from Anne. He says, how can I forgive parents for unfair treatment?
I think I would say that forgiving, the act of forgiving itself is the same from our own body point of view. However, the way you would exercise it would be different if it is a partner who cheated on you versus a parent where there is something you think you have to forgive. First of all, one big difference is a partner you can divorce, and parents you cannot divorce. And parents, no matter if they may be no more or whatever, it is still something that can haunt you. It's something very basic in us. So parental relationships are extremely complicated, I find. And forgiving parents is something that is, I find, more complicated than forgiving your partner for cheating. Two adults, and their relationship versus a parent where you think that you were wrong, then the things that are happening to you right now is because of your parents. You will, yeah, I think it will require a lot more than just the idea of forgiving. It will take time, it will take a lot of therapy, depends on what kind of trauma you have gone through. But yes, but also at the same time, as a parent myself, I would like to also realize that parents have their own baggage and they are not perfect either. And whatever happened to you, unless it was extremely traumatic, like to look for reasons why it may have happened. And was there any way in which the parent did have any good intention to pay attention to that? So it is possible, but again, it depends on the degree to which you are suffering right now.
Yeah, a couple of things that I'll add here to what Swati said is that one, I like J.K. Rowling's quote that's relevant in this context. In a Harvard speech, she said that there's an expiry date to blame your parents on your screw-ups. And I think that it's largely true. I think if you're physically abused or sexually abused or something like that by a parent, then that's going to not probably apply
Yeah, right.
context of this quote. But otherwise, if they maybe force-fed you or try to achieve their own successes through you and put a lot of pressure on you and so on and so forth, I think that quote is very applicable. There's an expiry date to blame your parents for, because once you become aware that that's why you're the way you are, then that's your life journey and you need to kind of move forward. The second thing that I would like to talk about is that we talked a little bit about this in the earlier session 3 on relationships, that your attachment style, insecure attachment style, often comes from your childhood experiences. Okay. And what research has discovered is that at least in the context of rats, right, that rodents, that when the mother doesn't give its rat child, enough of this contact comfort and hugging and everything, then that rat child as well passes it on to its progeny. Okay, it's now insecure and it's not going to hug its own children. And you have to be careful that if you continue to blame your parents for all your problems, then you're going to continue to do that and perpetrate those very things for your children, and now you're going to be blamed by your children. Okay, so it's very important to sever that link at some point and become a more kind of normal person. That is maybe a huge task, but you have to do it. And what has been discovered is that if those rat babies are brought up by somebody else that gives them a lot of love, so it doesn't become genetic, in other words, then they do change into being loving mothers themselves as well. And so it's up to you to kind of somehow pivot, and it's very, very difficult to do, but nevertheless that is your life's work, right? I mean, everyone's dealt a different deck of cards, and to the best extent you can, that is your life's journey now.
Just
I
a
think-
little. I think that there's also something important we have to take into account is cultural norms, and you can't do the same thing in every part of the world. Like in some countries, you can leave a phone on the table in a cafe to kind of book your table and say it's occupied, and nobody will touch it, and everybody will see a phone and think, oh, okay, this is busy. And here in Latin America, for example, you can't do that. So it's not even trust. I think it's just knowing the context, the cultural context in which you live.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, guys, I really have to go. Like I said, my
Yeah,
daughter picked
right.
up at 11:25. I'm sorry. And because I'm the host, I'm going to have to hang up now, which means that everyone
Yeah.
else is going to be hung up as well. So thank you again, Swati. And
Thank
thanks
you.
everyone for coming. And I'll see you guys next week. Okay, take care.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.